The Broncos take care of business. One to go before the Super Bowl. And, man, I got something special for you once we come back on the other side. You just wait. You're going to like it. Well, then there was one. Welcome to the Big Al and CJ Show. My man, Chad Brown, coming to us from his palatial estate down in the southwestern region of the United States. And, of course, my man, BK here in studio. Two books this week. Before we get into it, BK, hey, man, I want you to show everybody what you did here in studio about 30 seconds ago when I was asking, is there any more light that we could have on you? You know, I came in my Johnny Cash get a day, Chad. And check out what your boy did, man.
Right, he said he wanted more light, and he's on a single shot, so I put my phone light on him to help brighten up the shot. Because like we have big time studio lights. It's obviously a big time production, but he was one that asked for more light. I was trying to be a good teammate and help him out.
Hey, would you expect any less from BK?
I would not, but my question is, can BK get you some lotion for them ashy ankles that we're looking at right now?
Whoa. Now, wait a minute, man. Now, you are misseeing what's happening here.
There are some ankle socks there. So I thought, I'm like, I said something about him not wearing socks. I go, oh, you are wearing socks, which I have a million ankle socks when I wear shorts. But when I wear pants, I feel obligated to have socks that go kind of past my ankle.
Who the hell cares what you feel obligated to do when you wear shorts? Here's the deal, man. First of all,
Chad wears socks.
BK, you're not one to give fashion information tips to anyone.
No one's picking on my style.
My ankles are adequately, sufficiently, abundantly lubricated, man. This isn't Big Al. This is CJ sitting here, bro. Okay, let's be clear.
Maybe it's my camera. Maybe it's my computer where I'm detecting a bit of ash, but let's just roll with the show. There's lots of ball to talk about.
Listen, let's get right to it, man. The Denver Broncos take care of business. 33-30 victory over the Buffalo Bills here at Invesco Field at Mile High this past weekend.
Power Field at
Mile High this past weekend. And my goodness, it was an interesting weekend. Two of the games, divisional playoff games, outstanding games. The other two kind of sleepers a little bit, but great football to be sure. I'm looking at this Broncos team, and I got to tell you guys, in fact, I'll put it this way. When the game was over, I'm thinking this team is going to the Super Bowl. They have the good fortune of hosting the New England Patriots here at Empower Field at Mile High this upcoming Sunday. By the way, it's a 1 o'clock or 1:30 kickoff?
1 o'clock tip, which is unique. And Chad, you probably remember this because Chad and I were on the field, I think, for the 2013 AFC title game. We took pictures with John Bon Jovi.
You guys took pictures with John Bon Jovi.
We took pictures with John Bon Jovi.
You guys were fanboying?
It's John Bon Jovi, so we thought it was cool.
Okay.
But the 1 o'clock kick, what makes it unique is that, one, that's not a time that's normally kicked off anywhere in the league. Like that is 3 Eastern. Games kick at 1 Eastern, right. 4:30.
Right.
But in Denver specifically, games never kick that early because sometimes, like the game in Indy this year, just kicked in the late window. It was 2:25 or 4:25 Eastern instead of 1 Eastern. But 1 o'clock is only for when they host the AFC title game here, and they're the early window. CBS and Fox and NFC AFC flip-flop every year. So in odd years, 2013, 2015, 2025, the AFC is the early game and the NFC is the late game. And it's happened to work out that the Broncos were the host. So 1 o'clock is not earlier than their bodies are necessarily used to because they obviously play. They've only played, they only played 2 this year. They only played 2 in that early window all year out of 15 games of the 17. Only 2 were early. But 1 o'clock means it's going to be kind of sunny, we think, or if it is sunny, like it was on Sunday, there's more sun on the field. It's just a warmer day from 1 to 4:15 when the game ends, as opposed to 2:30 to 5:30, like it was the other night.
No, that's a good point, Chad. I got to tell you, man, I was feeling like this is set up extremely well for the Denver Broncos until we got the news post game that, of course, starting quarterback Bo Nix, season-ending ankle injury, had already had surgery, I believe, and the Broncos now will turn to Jarrett Stidham, their backup quarterback, to lead them in the AFC Championship game. Now, if I had just fallen into Denver and turned on sports talk radio, I would think that, hell, maybe Jarrett Stidham should have been the starting quarterback all year, given all the praise that's been heaped upon him. Chad, what am I missing here, man? I mean, am I to believe what my ears are hearing, or do I go with the fact that he's the backup quarterback?
Can two things be true at once? Yes, they can. He certainly is the backup quarterback. But he was drafted in New England to be Tom Brady's eventual replacement. That's why he was brought there. In his latest two starts in late 2023 and early 2024, he put together some pretty good numbers. He was hand-selected by Sean Payton to be the backup quarterback here. Sean Payton values that position a lot more than a lot of other coaches. And organizationally, they're willing to pay more for that backup quarterback slot than a lot of other teams are willing to do. So there's something to be said for that confidence that people have in him. There's something to be said for what he's actually done on the football field. But for me, it's just been such a long time since he's actually done it in a regular season game, much less a championship game, that I've got some doubts. Do I believe the team will rally behind Stiddy? Do I believe that Sean Payton will put together a great game plan? Do I believe that Jarrett Stidham will put together a good showing for himself? I think all those will be true. Still, there's a reason why he was the backup quarterback. And so advantage, not just conversationally, but advantage odds-wise, as evidenced by the folks in Vegas, goes to the Patriots based off the move from Bo Nix to Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah, the game plan is going to be fascinating to see because J.K. Dobbins' practice window is open. And we can kind of get into what him returning might mean if he can get on the field. Talking to some people in the know, he may have been able to go last week. It's my understanding they want to extend J.K. Dobbins on a multi-year, 2-3 year deal, kind of typical for a veteran running back. He's obviously been injured, including this year. He's never played more than, I think, 12 games in the season, including last year, and maybe played 13 for the Chargers. It was good in those 13. But how much do they really want to run the ball just to keep the defense honest? The Patriots run D is really good, one of the best in the league. We saw it on Sunday against the Texans. And then because Stiddy isn't the athlete Bo Nix is, he can move okay, like a 4.8 40 though. Bo is probably sub 4.6 when he's healthy. And I think that's what Sean Payton said. That surprised him, is Bo is a little faster than we even realized. But if Stidham can get outside at 3rd and 4, does he just take the 4? Because it does feel like Bo a lot of times is trying to force it downfield a little bit because he sees something, and Stiddy might just want to move the chains. But I don't think the game plan becomes a wholesale different approach. It's going to be on Sean Payton to earn his $20 million, though.
Well, I would say, I think to the point that Chad made, look, and I speak about this with a great deal of sensitivity, right? I was once a backup quarterback. I was once thrust into play because of a major injury to our starting All-American quarterback.
How'd that go?
Well,
I see a ring on your finger.
Yeah, you do. And went well. Chad has one too, by the way.
Are you wearing yours today or no?
No, I am not. But I will have some CU lore coming up as we talk about other football as the show goes along.
I can't wait. But I understand what that's like. And here's the bottom line. I understood, as well as at that point, the 80,000 fans that were in the stadium, and I think it was like 20 million who were watching. It was one of the highest rated Orange Bowls or bowl games at the time.
I missed it. What
in the history of it? Well, CU won the game.
Oh, cool. How'd you play?
CU won the game. I played okay. I mean, they gave me a little award. I think it was a notch, just one notch above a participation award, but it was an award that they granted me. Chad thought that he probably earned it, and he won't get an argument.
You just give it to him. We're handing out Nobel Prizes. You just give it to him. Here, if when you're in town this week and when you come back,
would you accept?
Will you accept his Orange Bowl MVP trophy?
No, I would not. It needs to be there has to be a ceremony. I need the confetti. I need all those things. CJ handing me his tarnished award. It's not going to do it.
Is that tarnished? It's just
tarnished.
used.
No, it's tarnished. Bro. In fact, I have to find it in order to give it to you.
That's how important it was.
But that said, listen, I get it, right? And Stenny's job is to go in and to create as little disruption as possible, right? Make this thing feel like it's business as usual. That said, Chad, I want to ask you, because you've been in these locker rooms, what about the rest of the guys who've been riding with Bo Nix all year long, and in most cases for two full years now? What does that do to them and their confidence in that position, which bottom line is the most important position on the field? What's it like for Nick Bonito and Cooper and all the guys, PS2? What are they feeling right now in terms of the confidence that they have to win this football game?
Well, these things go one of two ways within a locker room. Either guys are literally beginning to throw in the towel and looking at flights to Cabo in between meetings when they get back into the locker room because they know their season's over. Or if I'm looking at this Broncos locker room correctly, considering how resilient they've been all year and how they're looking to find ways to win no matter what the circumstances, they're going to be a team that's like, well, I got to find a way to step up. I've got to play bigger. So Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper, hey, a sack ain't good enough. We need to get a sack, strip the ball, give Jarrett Stidham a short field so they can get some points on the board. If I'm back in there in that secondary, I get an interception, let me find a way to take this thing back, put some points on the board defensively. If it's Cortland Sutton or Evan Ingram, we'll probably be without Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant. So we got to find a way to step up doubly because we're missing some of those guys in our room. Plus, we're missing our starting quarterback. I got to get great separation. So if Stiddy's a little early or a little behind with the throw, I can still make the catch. You've got to find a way to pull more out of yourself, not just because it's the AFC Championship, but because you were without the guy who's guided you to this incredible record, this incredible season this year.
Who is Jarrett Stidham? Who is Stenny? Look, you're probably around this team more than anyone who's not a member of the team. I would even call you a member of the team, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
My little Bronco.
Well, that's so nice. Like Miles, and then sometimes they have mini Miles.
I didn't say Miles. I said more mini. You're like
the 54th guy.
You're the 54th guy.
That's what.
Who is Jarrett Stidham, and why might Broncos fans or NFL fans who are looking at this game trying to figure out what the Denver Broncos are now without their starting quarterback? What would you tell them about Jarrett Stidham?
So a couple things, but Stiddy, as everybody calls him, including his head coach, describes himself as a vibes guy. And so when we go into the locker room,
most backup quarterbacks, by the way, they didn't earn nicknames, but that says a lot.
That says something. Okay. You go into the locker room on typically a Wednesday, Thursday, and especially on Friday, because what happens is on Wednesdays and Thursdays there's stuff going on outside at the podium. It's coach, it's Bo Nix, it's Cortland, it's PS2. Thursdays it's the coordinators, but there's stuff going on in the locker room too. But then on Friday, it's just coach, and then you're in the locker room. But all of those days, oftentimes, Stiddy is literally playing music in the middle of the locker room. He's got a big speaker thing, and he mixes it up. It's not like he's just playing one style of music. Yeah, I don't know if he's officially team DJ, just kind of setting the vibe.
Okay. What's on the playlist? Like, what would you hear?
I think it's all across the board. Country, hip hop, across, you name it, pop music. He's equal opportunity. But it's a dude that was a really good high school quarterback in Stephenville, which is a powerhouse program.
Every quarterback in
Texas,
NFL,
sure.
3 deep.
He goes to Baylor. He goes to Baylor, where he got caught up in all the Art Briles stuff. Briles is a Stephenville legend, so it's kind of a pipeline. He then goes to Auburn, helps recruit Bo Nix, and as Chad mentioned, the Patriots drafted him to potentially be Tom Brady's backup. So he spends 2 years there, then goes with Josh McDaniels to Vegas. I think he was actually there 3 years, but the third year didn't count because he was not on the active roster. Maybe his practice squad. But then he goes to the Raiders. And then Josh wanted him back with the Raiders, but the Broncos offered him $12 million to come here, or $10 million. And now he's making $6 a year. He's making $5 a year to maybe be the bridge quarterback if they wanted to move on from Russ, which they did, and he was. And then if they drafted a rookie that wasn't ready yet, to be the starter. And a lot of people, and Sean does a good job of letting the national folks know what he thinks. But when we were at the combine a year ago before they drafted Bo Nix, so 2 combines ago, there were lots of national people going, hey, they really like Stiddy. Because I think Sean was letting them know they really like him. And his teammates like him. Mike McGlinchey talked about it, Zach Allen, and even Max Crosby, who played with him in Vegas, said he came in one of his few starts, and lit up the Niners, which is a good defense every year, for 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns a couple years ago.
Is this wishful thinking? Listen, there's nothing wrong with a glass half full sort of mindset in situations like this. Nothing wrong with it at all. But is that what it is? Are we just looking at this saying, hey, listen, these are the cards that we've been dealt, and so this is the hand we have to play? And I want to give you the best case scenario on how this thing can turn out, because beyond the praise, the fact of the matter is, and I don't want to sound like a downer here, I want the people out there to get an accurate picture. You guys are painting something that's perhaps a little fuzzy. I just want an accurate picture. As much as there are, good testimony on what this guy has done from individuals, there is a record, right? There is evidence of something. You mentioned, BK, that Sean brought him in to be the bridge quarterback, shortest bridge in the history of the world, right? Not a lot of bridge there. In fact, started a rookie quarterback, if my memory serves me correct.
They were in a competition that Bo won.
That's exactly right. Doesn't mean that he's not an adequate backup quarterback. But Chad, I don't want to belabor the steady, topic here, but I do think it is the topic that's on everyone's mind. Who are the Denver Broncos with Jarrett Stidham as the quarterback? And so, Chad, I want you to give us the definitive word on Jarrett Stidham for the Denver Broncos in the AFC Championship game. This is the definitive word, Chad. I'm counting on you, because I know what BK is going to say. I want to hear from you, though. What should Broncos fans expect? What should they hope for?
Okay, just to go back to the conversation about you stepping in for Darian Hagan in the National Championship game. That season, Hagan was banged up a number of times. You played in a number of games that year. So
right.
When you went into the game, we had tremendous confidence, the rest of our teammates, but also you had confidence because you had played so much that year and won close games for us. So that's a little bit of a different situation.
Right.
Same with the Nick Foles comparison. Same with the Jeff Hostetler comparison. So it's not quite apples to apples there. But if I'm going to talk about this Jarrett Stidham start and this Bronco team this coming weekend, Sean Payton's going to have to lean upon his defense and his run game. So we saw Sean Payton get away from the run game again last week. Bo Nix was a leading rusher last week. That obviously can't be the case where Jarrett Stidham is a leading rusher and the Broncos find a way to come on top. Also, you can't ask Jarrett Stidham to throw 46 passes as Bo Nix was asked to throw last week. So it's going to have to be a lot more run, sprinkled in consistently, maybe some play action, some shots down the field. But other than that, keep the chains moving, short passes, take what that Patriots defense gives you. Keep them honest, throw an occasional deep ball to keep the safeties back so you can continue to run the football. But you've got one of the best defenses in the league, and Vance Joseph can dial up a great game plan. So lean on that defense. Get some of this run game going, which was starting to look pretty good before he got banged up. But now that he's back, let's lean upon it again here in this particular game. And let's not ask Jarrett to do too much in his first game action since early, like January of 2024 was the last time he got any significant game action. So let's not ask too much of this guy. Let's ask so much of everyone else who's actually up to speed from a AFC Championship play level and intensity.
So a couple things about Stidham and the backup quarterback for Sean Payton specifically, and I'm going to lean on other people and borrow some of their info. But James Palmer, who's covered the league forever, said that people that have played for Sean Payton, and this could be because James does a show with Chase Daniel, I'm going to bring up Chase in a second, but that it takes 3 years to really fully grasp Sean Payton's offense. It's not that Bo's not ahead of the curve and in really good shape for just a second-year pro, let alone second-year guy in this offense, but that Stidham's been in it for 3 years. So he has an even bigger command, and so that is working in his favor. Sean Payton has lost Drew Brees a few times over the years, had lost Drew Brees, and whether it was Jameis Winston, who I think went 5-2 or 7-2, Teddy Bridgewater 5-0. There's Taysom Hill, obviously, they won some games there, including here against no quarterbacks. The one game that Kendall Hinton and Phillip Lindsay were technically the starting QB.
That's right.
But that in year 3, he's going to have a handle on it, and that Sean is not uncomfortable with this. And then I mentioned Chase Daniel, who was a backup for Sean a lot. Right. And I heard where Chase said that he thinks Sean will not just keep it conservative that he will let Stidham use his arm talent. Some people think he has a stronger arm than Bo Nix, who certainly has made some big-time throws, but that he will try to stress the defense and be aggressive, not just let's be conservative. We can get a first down here and there, get into field goal range, but no, go try to score points and catch the Patriots off guard who might think that Stiddy is limited. Also, it's worth noting, because Mike Vrabel brought it up, but Josh McDaniels has been with Stidham a lot. So he knows who Stidham is and who he isn't and what he's capable of. So I don't know if it's going to totally catch him off guard, but the game plan calls for them to be aggressive. That might catch him off guard a little bit.
That's interesting, because that I think what you just said and that mindset going into this game would worry me. It certainly worries me more as a fan. I'm thinking Chad's analysis, be a little bit more conservative. And quite frankly, most people will say you should have been a little more conservative when Bo was healthy, right? And I think a number of games we've seen this year, sometimes in the balance because of that lack of complementary football, where you say, okay, we'll get it back. Okay. We don't have to be a throw caution to the wind or get in these sort of ruts where you look at the game this past weekend, Saturday, 46 pass attempts, 22 rushing attempts, I think, but 12 of the 22 were Bo Nix.
Well, but so let me ask you, Chad, because Sean always talks about it's matchup dependent, or who are we playing against? That's why we might go for it on fourth down. Or you look at the very vanilla game plan against the Chiefs and against the Chargers. Now, those are backup quarterbacks, but against the Patriots team that we know can score, they've got two capable running backs, an okay receiving core, not a great receiving core. Stephon Diggs can still make plays. The booty kid looked awesome. Hunter Henry and Hooper as the tight ends. But do they go back to that game plan that they had against the Chiefs and Chargers, where they let our defense keep us in it? And then what? Now, part of that is Bo's got fourth quarter clutch magic, if you will, or that we've seen, that clutch gene that we know Stiddy has or not, because he hasn't really been put in that situation. Bo has over and over and has passed that test.
If you're going to look at this game plan, this football team, I think you've got to recognize that going into this game, Jarrett Stidham is the biggest unknown. So to hitch your wagon fully to the biggest unknown on your roster and say, we're going to do the same things we've always done. We're not going to ask anything different of anybody else. We're going to ask this guy who hasn't started a game in 2 seasons, essentially, to suddenly be just like Bo Nix. That's coaching dereliction of duty in my mind. Does he have some arm talent? Can he sling the ball a bit around the yard? Yes. Is he better than most backup quarterbacks? Could he start for some teams in the league? All that can be true, but to suddenly say, you know what, this train's going in one direction and you got to hop on it and be like the other guy, that's not how it's supposed to work. As a coach, if you're going to look at the opponent, who they are, what they are, situational, all those kind of things, you've also got to look at your players, your quarterback, and go, okay, this is not the same guy as Bo Nix. What can I do from a game calling standpoint, from a play calling standpoint, to make this guy as successful as possible? And to my mind, that's going to be run the football. That's going to be play action pass. That's going to be lean on the defense. That's going to be to shorten the game so we don't end up with 46 pass attempts. So we end up with 25 to 27 is the ideal window for me.
In the post-game press conference, I think it was the post-game press conference, 2 things sort of obviously stuck out. The big one was the announcement of Bo Nix's injury.
So the second press conference, because
that was the second.
Sean did too.
The press conference after the press conference. But the injury itself, right? I'm thinking, that's obviously not good. The second thing that sort of got my attention is when Sean Payton said, basically, I look at this as we have 2 quarterbacks that could, in essence, he drew no distinction. I get it. You don't want to alarm your team or your fan base by saying, hey, this is going to be a negative for us moving forward, and this is a hurdle we have to overcome. You don't put that in the public. But my concern was, and Chad just alluded to it a little bit, he doesn't see a distinction or any adjustment that might be made in the game plan to protect the guy who hadn't played for almost 2 years. And so I'm thinking, and we won't see it unfold. Perhaps he's being a little coy, a little cat and mouse with with New England here. But if in fact he believes that and move forward as if there is no distinction between a guy who's been your starter for a few years now and a guy who hasn't played in a couple, that is an alarm. That's an alarm bell for me. I hope he's playing cat and mouse with this one.
Well, and the other thing too, looking at those backup quarterbacks that I brought up, obviously Taysom Hill played plenty of gadget plays, but Teddy Bridgewater had been a first-round pick and a starter in the league. Jameis Winston, clearly a first-round pick and a starter. So Sean gave them quarterback rehab, just like we think he gave Zach Wilson last year. But when Miami abandoned ship with Tua this year, they played, and I understand Ewers was a rookie, and so like, let's see what we got with this rookie. But Zach Wilson was there, and they paid him a few $1 million.
Right.
And the Broncos wanted him back, and they're happy to have Sam Ehlinger, who the Colts wanted to sign. And Sam wanted to stay here, maybe because he thought the Broncos could go farther, having no idea if he would ever be needed. And certainly Sam Ehlinger has to be ready to go too. That's a guy that's at least started a few games in the league more recently than Stidham has. But when you look at the value of a backup quarterback, so whether it was Chase Daniel, who had other options, but then jumping ahead to, and it was Mark Brunell ahead of Chase Daniel, actually, back in Breeze Up when they won the Super Bowl, but paying Teddy Bridgewater, paying Jameis, paying, I think Andy Dalton was there for a little bit. You're paying these guys more than you're normally often paying a backup QB because they're a cut above. And like Chad said, they could start. Like if you're the Cardinals, we'll see it unfold a little bit, and it is an AFC title game. Jacoby Brissett was as good, if not better, than Kyler. But if Stidham plays really well, even in a loss, you say, hey, let's trade for him if you're not drafting a quarterback. Or if you're the Dolphins, who don't know what they're doing, even though you have Zach Wilson. Stidham has a chance to, I think, maybe back up his own statement, which when people took it wrong, I think, Chad, and you were obviously doing daily radio when this happened a year ago. Stidham, after finding out he lost the battle, said, I think I'm a starter in this league. And everybody took it as, oh, I think I'm better than Bo, which isn't what he was saying. He's saying, I think I'm one of the 32 best QBs. 380 million people in America, we still can't find 32. We can't even really find 10 or 12 good quarterbacks. But if he's 27 to 32, he may not be wrong. He's just lower than Bo, and he happens to be, just like if he were in Kansas City, he would be behind Mahomes, but that doesn't mean he's not good enough to start 4 or 5 other places.
Well, I think you said it best. There are probably 16 like quality quarterbacks in the league. And obviously there's a lot of room for improvement at the quarterback position. It's just that difficult a position to play. And so sure, Stidham, along with probably every other backup quarterback in the league, is saying, I'm one of the top 32.
But they don't all get $6 million a year is all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, let me ask you this, and perhaps the money will be earned this weekend, right? Yeah. Like, because there's nothing that any of the fans have seen as a Bronco that says he's earned that $6 million.
Other than preseason, he looked good in preseason, but we could run the list down of people who have looked great in preseason. He looked better than Bo in the preseason games, but again, he was playing 2s versus 2s or 2s and a halves against 3s at time, Well, so I take that with a grain of salt.
I'm gonna switch real quick because at some point I do. Chad, did you have anything else on Stidham?
Yeah, my thoughts are the Broncos are not going to win or lose this game based off of Stidham. He'll be good, not great, not awful. He'll be good. You would expect your backup quarterback who you value and you're paying all this money to from a backup standpoint, and you're hand selected by one of the coaches most dialed into the quarterback position in all the league, in Sean Payton. So all that's going to fit. This game is going to be won and lost by other parts of the game. So all this conversation about Jarrett Stidham as if he was going to somehow rise above Drake May, who's a candidate for league MVP, who could be the best quarterback in the league going into next season. It just doesn't add up. Jarrett Stidham's not going to beat Drake May. It's going to be the Denver Broncos and Jarrett Stidham doing his job that could have the possibility of beating Drake May and the Patriots.
Well, that actually bodes well. If Jarrett Stidham is good, not great, good, not bad, check positive for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, and our friend here, Sherry Carter, has thrown a bunch of comments up, but one of them is that talk about the Broncos hitting the Patriots QB and how much Drake May takes shots, and he's leading the league in fumbles for a quarterback. After the other day, he's up to 14. I think 14 lost. He put 4 on the carpet and grabbed 2, and the Texans grabbed 2. He threw an interception. a lot's been made about their schedule, but he hasn't played defenses like the Broncos other than the other day against the Texans. And I understand Will Anderson and Daniel Hunter are different. They get home with 4 a lot, but the Broncos get home with 4 as much as anyone. And then obviously VJ can dial it up from anywhere. I think that it's going to be a longer day for mostly, I guess, Will Campbell, the rookie left tackle, who we think is going to be okay, first rounder, but he had a rough one the other day. It's not getting easier this week. So that should allow you to, hopefully, if you can be aggressive. The Broncos were maybe at times overly aggressive, and we know that's kind of Hufanga's calling card, maybe Alex Singleton. And that's why I think they're vulnerable at times. And Chad, you can speak to this better on the edges. But they were violent. We saw that. And if they're violent again on Sunday, and I understand weather may have played a little bit of part in what happened Sunday in Foxborough with the snow and moisture. But if they're that violent, that bodes well for the Broncos as well.
Look, I will say this, and you're absolutely right. I think the Broncos dodged the bullet this past week, not because Buffalo was a better team than New England, but because that quarterback threatens the strength of your team in a very, very unique way, and we saw it. There were times where he got the better of the Broncos defense because that's just what he's capable of. And then there were times where the Broncos forced him into some bad plays. And look, I know there's a lot of controversy about the interception that, could go either way. I've been arguing ever since it happened that I think it was the right call. But that aside, I do think you're absolutely right. The good news for the Broncos is Drake May, in a lot of ways, is a more traditional target for a very aggressive defense. He's likely to be where he's supposed to be when the Broncos pin their ears back and do what they're best in the league at, and that's sacking the quarterback, causing turnovers perhaps is an opportunity for this team as well, much like they did against Josh Allen. But Chad, from a defensive perspective, a team that fashions itself or sort of leans on the ability to wreak havoc and cause distractions for the opposition's quarterback. How do you compare these two, looking at what Josh Allen presented to this defense and the challenge that Drake made this weekend? Because I think with all the quarterback talk, rightfully so, and you, again, Chad, that's the third time I said you've kind of made the point, which that has never happened on the show that we've been on. But that said, you're right. Like, this game should, if it's a Denver Bronco type game, the storyline is the Denver Broncos defense against this New England Patriots offense and Drake May.
Well, I think you're asking me for a comparison between Josh Allen and Drake May.
As it relates to what the Denver Broncos defense do in terms of its strengths.
And we're also got to acknowledge that Drake May might be the MVP this year, Chad.
Right. So he might be the MVP. Josh Allen was a former MVP. Drake May can make plays with his legs, not as powerfully, not as a short yardage or goal line runner like Josh Allen can, but he can certainly make plays with his legs and escape the pocket. Kid's got a pretty good feel for all of that. I think the surrounding cast for Drake May is better than what Josh Allen had out there. Josh Allen lost 3 receivers in the 2 weeks before this Bronco game. So a healthier group for New England. And so that makes me think that although Josh Allen felt the need to go Superman mode, and at some point he did, it also led to him trying to do too much. I don't think Drake May is going to feel that same pressure to try to do too much. And again, we don't have to go back very far to look at the Jacksonville game with Trevor Lawrence and see what they did against this Broncos defense. Jacksonville was fine for Trevor Lawrence to get sacked. He got sacked 4 times in that game. They weren't like just saying, here, sack Trevor Lawrence, but they weren't going with max protection. They weren't keeping both backs and a tight end in. They weren't doing all these crazy protection schemes to deal with Vance Joseph and the pass rush from the Denver Broncos. They recognized those dudes are going to get theirs, but we got to find a way to get ours. And they ended up with 6 pass plays down the field of 20-plus yards or more. So if you look at a sack of maybe 7 or 8 yards versus 6 plays of 20-plus yards or more, I mean, we all can do math. The math is on the explosive plays. And so I think, Mike, that's not going to be lost on Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel. Yeah, Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper are going to be impossible to contain all game long, but so is Stephen Gilmore, and so is Hunter Henry. They're going to be impossible to contained all game long. We'll take our chances going down the field to get some explosive plays against this Broncos defense, which gave up a ton of explosive plays to the Buffalo Bills last week.
Well, and maybe you're even less worried about Diggs, like you saw with although J-Mac is playing good football.
Diggs.
No, Diggs, Steph Diggs. But the point being, if he's their number one and he stays number one, if he's outside, Pat's on him probably a fair amount. But it was Parker Washington who was the leading receiver for as well as Jacoby Myers played, and he got there in the middle of the year, and Brian Thomas's talent in year 2, although there's clearly a drop-off, Travis Hunter early, although we never saw the buff after he got hurt. Parker Washington destroyed the Broncos that day. He was the key to that passing game, so that almost makes me worry more about the Booty kid who had a couple scores the other day and played well, and so then that becomes Riley on him some, J-Mac on him some. And so Diggs, not that Diggs won't get a catch or two, but if Pat's on him, that's about all he's going to get. We just know what time it is there when Pat's on you. But I want to ask about Josh, because Chad, you were there when Josh was still the play caller, right, in New England?
Yes.
I think Chad played for every coach in the National Football.
Well, not anymore. All these dudes are 30 years old. He didn't play for Liam Cohen. He didn't play for. But we spent so much time talking about Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan and their tree and that offensive creativity. And Sean, even though he comes from Gruden and Andy Reid, and I guess Andy Reid, but Sean Payton is in a different world. Josh is kind of on his own island because he's not from anybody's tree other than he's with Belichick forever. But I remember hearing like Chris Sims talk about the best play callers in the league, and this is maybe before he got the Raiders job, but it's Sean Payton, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Andy Reid, and Josh McDaniels is in that group. In Denver, it's so easy for us to remember Josh McDaniels, a failed head coach. And then you fast forward to leaving the Colts at the altar, but the time in St. Louis after he gets fired here wasn't great. They didn't have a lot to work with, but he wasn't great. He might have had Sam Bradford, I guess, at the end of his knees. And then in Vegas, it didn't go great. But as far as an offensive coordinator and play call, I get he had Tom Brady for a lot of it. Where do you value? Because I'm gonna ask Sean about this tomorrow. But where do you value Josh McDaniels, the play caller and the game plan approach that he takes as the offensive coordinator there for so many great offenses there in New England, Chad?
Top 7 at least, maybe top 5 play caller in the league. And part of that is because, and one of the reasons people don't mention a system with him is because he's off the Belichick tree. And the Belichick tree there's no system there. We take a look at what we have, we take a look at what you have, and we take a look at what you've got difficulty defending and what you do well, and we try to do the opposite. So again, an example I often give is when I was with the Patriots and we played the Pittsburgh Steelers on a Monday night game, and the Steelers had the number 1 ranked run defense in the league. So what does Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels do? They throw the ball for the first 30 plays of the game. As Bill said all week, we're not going to slam our head into a brick wall. That's just silly. And so we were able to take advantage of that Steelers defense by throwing the ball 30 times in one game. Is it outside of conventional football wisdom to do that? Yeah. But when you got the number 1 ranked run defense, do you try to run the ball against them? You do something else. So Josh is going to look at this Broncos defense. He's going to look particularly at what the success the Buffalo Bills had. They had a number of explosive runs. They had a number of explosive plays. Where did those plays come from? Why was the Broncos defense giving that up? That part of that you alluded to earlier, BK, is the aggressive nature of guys like Ofungo, who can miss a tackle in the hole because he's being so aggressive, maybe over aggressive on a pass coverage opportunity. So they're going to look at those kind of things. So the game plan is not based off a style. It's based off of what we got, who do you have, and what's going to give us best chances for success. And I think that's what makes Josh so great, is because you can't just say, if we take away these 3 things, they're not going to be very good. Great. Take away those things. We assume you're going to try to take away those things. Therefore, we're going to hit you with this counterpunch over here.
Chad, I like how you broke that down. Arguably the greatest coach to ever coach, certainly football, certainly in the National Football League. His system is common sense. That team's really good at stopping the run. We're going to throw it. That team is really good at getting after my passer, and we can't, get the ball downfield. We're going to run it. And in a lot of ways, I think football really is, at the end of the day, kind of just that simple. If there are 7 guys on that side of the ball and 4 over here, I think my chances are better to go to where the 4 are and not to where the 7 are if I'm on the offensive side. And so there is a lot of common sense that I think we miss or don't apply when we talk about football. Now, I will say this about the Denver Broncos. They out here getting coaches fired and carrying on, dealing with, messing with people's livelihoods. But before we get to that, I do want to give a shout out to my folks out at Golf Den. Golf-den.com is where you want to go right now. The A Concourse at the Denver airport is where you will find Golf Den. It is the coolest simulation golf environment you're going to find. And when you're at the airport, flight delayed, or whatever the case may be, get there early and get you some swings in. BK, I absolutely recommend that you spend a little bit more time at Golf Den. Here's another cool deal. When I was last at Golf Den, what I noticed, families in there, kids get a little bit bored, they get a little bit antsy. Take them over to Golf Den. Again, the A Concourse at Denver Airport, golf-den.com. And you can find all the specials there, but that's where you want to be. Take the family, get there about an hour early before your flight, 90 minutes, and go get yourself a few swings in, work on that game before the weather breaks here in the beautiful Mile High City. So I wanted to give a shout out to my folks over at Golf Den. But McDermott, the former football coach for the Buffalo Bills, real quick, guys, did that make sense? Was that something that you all thought was the right move for the Buffalo Bills, Chad?
I think it was. And unless Buffalo won the Super Bowl or at least went to the Super Bowl this year, that was going to happen. I think they recognized that they were reaching the limits with him as the head coach. And so while we certainly can say the Broncos caused this has been building for a while. When you've got a franchise quarterback who's in his franchise quarterback window and you're paying him franchise quarterback money, you got to go more than 8-8 in the playoffs with this guy. So the Bills made the right choice. They've got to move on. And I've got to think because of Josh Allen, because of a steady ownership group, because of a new stadium and all those things that are happening with this franchise, they will be towards the tops of the coaching hiring cycle as far as picking the best coach for them.
Well, you have to wonder if John Harbaugh, though it sounds like he really just wanted to be a Giant as much as anything, and that's certainly the way the folks in New York are spinning it, but he's a football historian, and that's why he was quoted as talking about the New York football Giants. I think he had his opening presser today, but this was even leading up to that. But over and over, he kept saying the New York football Giants. But both he and Stefanski, who are certainly high on the list of available coaches, took their jobs, New York and Atlanta. And then Sean McDermott gets fired, especially Stefanski, who's like, God dang, I've already been living in Cleveland. Buffalo and Cleveland are similar. Cleveland has an NBA team and a baseball team and a casino. I guess they both have casinos right downtown and on a great lake, cold in the winter. But I got Josh Allen. Okay, give me that. Nonetheless, those are two off the table. But you hear Brian Daboll's name because of how well he got along with Josh. Joe Brady's there. Maybe Josh comes in and pushes forms like, just let Joe run the show. Go find the defensive coach that you want or keep whoever. Or maybe it's Davis Webb, who's one of Josh's best friends. And they go, we're going to get a 30-year-old who's going to be our coach here for 15 years. But I think with McDermott, it's, somebody pointed out John Fox went to the Super Bowl, won the division 3 times with Peyton Manning, but loses to the Colts. They move on from him. Harbaugh gets let go because in 18 years, but in 8 with Lamar, you don't even get to a Super Bowl, let alone have a chance to win one. And so this is where they're like, it's not good enough when we've got these guys. Would the Cardinals, the Dolphins haven't won a playoff game since 2000. Would they take multiple trips to the playoffs the way Buffalo has? Sure.
Absolutely.
But it's different in different places. And when you've got maybe the best quarterback in the league, you cannot sit around and wait for it to get figured out or hope that, next year's our year.
Yeah. I will say this. It's so interesting how sort of fate plays out. You look at this guy, and 2 games come to mind that, quite frankly, I think contributed to his circumstance being fired after this Broncos loss. One, his team having a lead it was the AFC Championship game?
AFC Championship game in Kansas City
with 13 seconds left.
13 seconds, 2019 season.
That's just bad
2020
luck,
Super Bowl. Yeah,
that's just bad luck. And you fast forward to this past weekend, there is a very controversial call that if it goes his way, he wins that game. And so we're talking about, people say it's a game of inches. It is absolutely that. And if those two circumstances, both beyond his control, end up differently, we're probably not having this. In fact, I would hearken to say we're absolutely not having this conversation. That said, we know what the outcomes were. And, so it's kind of like, on one hand, I hear what you all are saying, but if we actually replayed how this whole thing went down, it's less about competence and more about luck. He was just not lucky. I mean, he got the raw end of the stick on this one, man. And so as a result, he's a former head coach at this point. Another name that you mentioned that I can understand, by the way, just to set up the coaching carousel, I think at one point, or at no point were there 10 jobs open at one time, but there are a total of 10 jobs that have opened up in terms.
It's the most ever. It's tied for the most ever a couple times, 78, right after the Broncos lost to the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. That cycle had 10, but there were only 28 teams maybe at the time.
Right.
And then it's happened maybe once or twice ever. I think maybe 2012 or something.
Right. So
it doesn't happen a lot.
That's right. So we got 10 openings. Now you mentioned the name that I'm still I'm scratching my head on one hand, and it's also sort of proof positive of how these coaching hires work, right? Like Kevin Stefanski,
2-time coach of the year.
And a lot of time failure of the year, right?
Well, he was strapped with the Deshaun thing. Where do you come down on Kevin Stefanski as a coach? And look, Shelby Harris, who obviously is a big part of what we do, loves Kevin, raves about him, and a lot of his players do. The Deshaun thing, he doesn't have his fingerprints on the trade, not getting more out of him before he got hurt. I don't know. But where do you come down on Stefanski, Chad?
I think he's a good head coach, as I think Sean McDermott is a good head coach. I got a more positive feeling about Kevin Stefanski than I do about Sean McDermott. So many things were lined up with the Josh Allen thing for Sean McDermott. Kevin Stefanski has yet to really have that opportunity. But I love some of the things that he does, particularly from the offensive perspective. So I think his hire was a good one, and I think he'll bring success with him. Where Sean McDermott ends up, he may have to go back down to the coordinator slot before he gets another head coach opportunity.
It's interesting. I think Kevin Stefanski, as I think just echoed on this show, gets the benefit of perception, right? There's a benefit there. And in my opinion, listen, the bloom has come off the rose of the coach of the year thing. That was 6 years ago?
Well, he's won it twice. No, one of them was just a few years ago when they were in Vegas. He won it that year too.
What's his overall record?
It's got to be under 500 just because
it is absolutely
they didn't go to the
500.
playoffs. And with Baker beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. But maybe that's one of the more interesting things, that you couldn't figure it out with the number one pick, who clearly has had plenty more good football left in him.
Sure,
with what we've seen from Baker. I understand that it didn't work out this year for the Bucs, but they've gone to the playoffs. He obviously nobody ever seemed to play well in Carolina until now. Bryce Young a little bit and Cam, but that he couldn't figure it out with Baker, the number one overall pick, that you couldn't extend that and never even have to make the Watson trade because you had Myles Garrett. So if you have Baker and Myles Garrett, you can't have two much better building blocks, I wouldn't think, if you're a franchise that you'd feel good about right now. Most teams would. And so I'm kind of with you on Stefanski. To me, I think he's a good coach. I don't know if he's a great coach, but Jeff Hafley getting that job right away was interesting to me. Packers team's been good. They haven't been great, but they hired an assistant GM, and he goes to Miami, and immediately Jeff Hafley gets the job. The one thing I was going to say, though, is with all these jobs available, still 6 available, Pittsburgh is one we're not really talking about.
That's right. Hafley to the Dolphins.
Yes. And then Robert Saleh yesterday to the Titans. Is where does Vance Joseph shake out in this? It feels like Arizona, again, is at the bottom of the list. Both they and Cleveland don't get to pick first unless they just zero in on their guy, throw a bunch of money, and that coach is excited to be there. But the Raiders were in Miami taking some meetings, I think, with some of these assistants on either the first or a second meeting and watching Fernando Mendoza. But are the Raiders willing to wait for Vance Joseph, for Clint Kubiak? Because they can't talk to him again until next week, just by league rules. After they were able to talk that first week, they got to go 2 full weeks without being able to talk to him if your team's still in the playoffs. Or if they wanted to had they talked to someone from the Patriots or the Rams. The passing game coordinator for the Rams, he can't talk to anybody this week.
Right.
Shieldhouse, he has to wait till next week. Are the Raiders willing to wait? Are the Ravens? We don't know much about what the Ravens are doing other than we heard a second interview's coming for Joe Brady. But if you're Joe Brady, do you leave Buffalo to go to Baltimore? Or do you at least let it play out in Buffalo? And then we also saw Anthony Weaver, who was the Dolphins coordinator the last couple of years, played for Baltimore, coached in Baltimore. He's also getting a second interview, but that's not the end of their list of second interviews. So are the Ravens willing to wait? Because last week their owner, Steve Bisciotti, who almost never meets the media, said he's interested in former head coaches that didn't have a good quarterback situation 5 or 6 years ago. And to me, Vance Joseph's at least on that list.
Right.
So does VJ, we'll see about Arizona. They know him. They don't need to race to interview him. The owner knows him. GM knows him. They interviewed him twice last time around. But Ravens and Raiders, is VJ still in the mix there? When a new job opens up, you're never cheering for anybody to get fired. But in this case, it's good for someone like VJ or Clint Kubiak because it's just taking a little longer to fill all the chairs.
Well, and Chad, given the fact that those, to BK's point, chairs have not yet been filled, it's fair to, I guess, conclude perhaps that bodes well for coaches who are still coaching because they can't fill the chair until, as BK just mentioned, the AFC and NFC championship games have been played. There's that 1 week gap between the Super Bowl, the championship games and the Super Bowl, which allows coaches to travel and to sit down and do face-to-face interviews.
And they still can't be announced, which is why Kellen Moore didn't get announced after the Super Bowl, Steichen, Gannon, but it gets known, and that's why they stopped doing interviews. Like, okay, we expect to see
that's
Kellen
exactly
Moore
right.
in New Orleans. That's why they aren't still interviewing people.
How does that bode? And how does this, again, the coaching, there is no science to this stuff, right? You know, who went to school with who knows who worked with, like the Halfley hired. I mean, I'm like, what, who, like what? And, but that being said, that's just the nature of this. This is a people's business, or a people business. How does that bode for a guy like VJ in your mind, Chad, with 6 jobs still open as we approach the AFC Championship game this weekend?
I think VJ, it has to be at the tops of people's list. Obviously, I think folks recognize the lack of opportunity he had in his first time go around as far as hiring his own coaches and even playing some of the players he wanted to play. So that's got to be viewed with a bit of a grain of salt there. Now, something that's lost in all this is, as we were talking about Kevin Stefanski, I looked up his record. He was 45-56 as a head coach, but he was in the AFC North. Gosh, Baltimore and Lamar Jackson dominated that division. While early on in his career, Kevin Stefanski, Pittsburgh was still pretty darn good. Joe Burrow is also in that division. So as much as I want our boy VJ to get an awesome job and an awesome opportunity, is the Raiders that opportunity where you got a guy who's part-time broadcaster, part-time owner telling you what to do, and he's not even in the building the whole time? You don't have a quarterback. There's a lot of dysfunction over there. And plus he would immediately come into a division with Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, and Patrick Mahomes. So again, I love VJ and I want him to get a job, but I'm not sure if that Raiders job is the job that would give him the best chance for long-term success.
What would be the best? What would be the best job for long, as you project? And BK, I'd love to get your opinion on this too. Since you bring it up, what do you think? What job would be the best for long-term success?
Baltimore would be great. You've got a division that's in flux from a head coaching standpoint. You've got a quarterback in the division who's questioning whether he wants to keep going in Joe Burrow. You got a quarterback on that roster in Baltimore who's a former MVP, who needs a little bit more, I think, of a brother to put his arm around him and say, hey, man, this is how we got to do this, and not whatever Harbaugh was doing the last couple of years with Lamar Jackson. So that would be a great opportunity for success. You got an owner who knows what he's doing, an owner that's won championships, a front office that is tremendous at drafting players and getting the maximum out of the draft process. The Ravens usually are the top 2 teams in the league with compensatory draft picks. So that's an organization that knows how to do it right. And it's an opportunity in that division while everyone else is down to get on top and keep kicking them while they're down so you can stay on top.
I'll play devil's advocate for what makes the Raiders at least appealing. And this isn't a scenario where he just doesn't get the Ravens job, but the Raiders offer it to him. Is Max Crosby is certainly a cornerstone of that defense, and you can do one of 2 things. You can keep him there. He wants to be a Raider. He looks like a Raider. But you can also trade him and probably get some value there. They have to get better up front. But I think wherever VJ goes, he's going to follow Sean Payton's model, which is the Bill Belichick Bill Parcells model, we're going to be good up front and good on both sides of the ball. So they will spend free agent dollars there. They will draft there. And by the way, they're going to have the top pick in each round. Because I don't even know if it's a coin flip, but definitely the first pick.
Mm-hmm.
So just give them Mendoza for now. We can argue that or talk about that later. But they also have the most money to spend in free agency in a place people want to live with no state income tax. And so, one of the fastest growing cities in America. Whether you like the glitz and glam of Vegas, there's also the parts of Vegas that aren't the Strip. There's Summerlin and all that, and Henderson where their brand new headquarters is, brand new stadium. And so you've also got Brock Bowers, who was as good a rookie 2 years ago that wasn't a quarterback. You got Genty, who you think you like. So you got a couple pieces and $115 million to spend. The Brady piece is interesting because how involved is he? But if they're going to let you hire your own staff, if he happened to go there, VJ specifically, Joe Woods and Marcus Robertson are already on the staff. Two guys that he probably wants to bring with him anyway. But that's in a world where the Ravens are still the pick over the Raiders, I think. Even with if Mendoza becomes awesome, then it's an interesting conversation. If he can go toe-to-toe with the three other quarterbacks in his division and with the three other coaches. Now, VJ's also used to coaching against. He sees Bo every day, and he's slowed Patrick Mahomes down as well as anybody, and certainly slowed Herbert down as well as anybody at times.
No, I mean, you make a good case, and I think, look, you're right. There's some interesting pieces there in Vegas to say perhaps the thing that would worry me a little bit is the lack of any sort of infrastructure that you can lean on to make the right moves moving forward. And Al Davis's haircut, man, I'm not sure if I can.
Mark.
Yeah.
If you're a billionaire, you got to think that there's anything you could do differently, maybe. But
what's up with
the Ravens? I don't know. Chad's right though. The Ravens are still the best job. To me, the Ravens are Ferrari that just need, a different driver. It's like that 24-hour Le Mans where they swap out drivers. Or 24 hours of Daytona. The car's fine. So it's not that VJ's a better coach than John Harbaugh. He's just a different coach, or whomever they were to bring in.
Maybe a better coach.
He may be. He may be. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it's a Ferrari that is just going to get a different driver. It's not, we've got a really cool old Ferrari that used to be cool, and now we got to put new tires on it and a new engine.
Yeah.
Which is what the Raiders kind of are, because they haven't been cool. It's a cool brand, and Vegas is cool, but the Raiders haven't been anything since 2002.
Yeah, and it's not very often that a head coaching job opens up where your quarterback is a two-time MVP. That's a very unique sort of circumstance.
And Derrick Henry's declining all the way to 1,500 yards, second in the league in rushing or whatever.
I'll take that decline.
No kidding.
All day, every day, twice on Sunday. Hey, you mentioned Mendoza. The Indiana Hoosiers went on the most improbable run. And I know there's a bunch of recency bias around hearing things like the greatest college story ever and the greatest blah, blah, blah. It's certainly an extremely interesting one, a meteoric rise for the Indiana Hoosiers, in which today's college football game, the landscape of college football, allows room for it to happen. And Cignetti and that crew did an amazing job. And so I don't know how much there is to discuss. If you guys want to talk about the game a little bit, feel free to do so. I think the big story coming out of this game is it was another opportunity to analyze the Heisman Trophy winner and the projected first pick of the draft. And I'll ask both of you guys, have you seen or did you see a franchise quarterback that's capable of leading an NFL team to a championship in Fernando Mendoza?
Yes, I did. I think we all got a chance to see that. That gutsy run on fourth down to get into the end zone, took a shot to the back, held on to the football, showed toughness. There has not been a question put in front of Fernando Mendoza this year that he has not answered on the football field. I know he's a little goofy with his answers in interviews, and he's a little corny, and he sounds like Chat GPT in a human form. But as a football player, this dude is the real damn deal. I saw him play twice this year in the Big Ten Championship game earlier this year against Illinois. He was tremendous in both those games. That Illinois game, the week before, he had a 98% completion percentage. Then he went out against Illinois, had like a 92 complete completion percentage in that game. So he can be incredibly accurate when dealing with some of the best teams and best defenses in football. He has got a clutch gene. He's got a fourth quarter gene. He's got everything you want, and he loves football. At the Heisman Trophy ceremony, he was asking some of the guys about when do I start bringing girls into my life. He's so focused on football. Women and girls are not a part of his life right now.
CJ didn't see that video, Chad.
Huh?
CJ didn't see that video. Ricky Williams, noted Heisman winner. It was great. Yes. I mean, you already started to half tell the story, but yeah, CJ didn't see that video.
Wait a minute. He was asking guys when should he start.
He was asking Tim Tebow. Is probably the right guy to ask. As far as when should I start talking to girls, basically.
Basically, I'm so focused on football. Women are not a part of my life. But, you know, now that I'm going into the NFL and I got my Heisman Trophy, and heck, he's got his national championship, when do I start bringing women into my space? Because my space has been filled with football and only football for so long. So that's how focused this dude is. That's how driven
that kind of worries.
This dude is.
Interesting. It's interesting your take on that. That worries me. I'm not sure if that'd be good for her or him. Hell, it's been working for him this long. Why would you change?
Well, here's what makes all of this amusing is if nothing changes between now and April 23rd, he's going to be the first pick of the Las Vegas Raiders. And if you want to bring women into your life and figure out different approaches, Vegas offers you various opportunities to do that on lower level, more serious, whatever it may be. But it's a kid that grew up in a mile from the Miami campus.
Right.
So he's been around women his whole life. And then he was at Cal, which no one's confusing Cal with Arizona State in the Pac-12 or whatever you want to call these leagues now, Big 12. But there's still plenty of attractive women in the Bay Area. And then Indiana is a huge university where when you're the guy, I'm sure there are people that come into his orbit he can be talking to.
Of course. The opportunity is not his issue.
Yeah. So
you're right. You go to Vegas, this thing go from 0 to 60 real quick.
All it takes is one or two teammates to be like, we got you, dude.
That's all it takes. That said, Chad, I'm going to challenge you on the assurance that or the picture that you paint of him being a surefire franchise guy. What I love about the Indiana story, it really is an Indiana story. This isn't Cam Newton at Auburn, where there was a guy who just pulled everyone across the goal line with him to will that team to a national championship. If I'm not mistaken, I think Indiana actually run the ball 55% of the time. What you have, in my opinion, similar to J.J. McCarthy a little bit with Michigan. My biggest hesitation with J.J. McCarthy was that it was a system that played to his strength and quite frankly plays to any quarterback's strength. If you can win games running the ball 55% of the time, your quarterback is going to be pretty damn good from a completion percentage perspective and from an overall performance perspective. I don't want to take anything away from the young man because you're right. I've seen him, as he did last night in the national championship game, make big plays, right? The play that you described, running the ball on 4th and 5 and scoring that touchdown. It reminded me of the John Elway Green Bay helicopter for the first down, hit touchdown. I don't want to take that away from him, but here's a guy who's played on schedule. He was a quarterback who played on schedule. There is not that scenario that exists in the National Football League, certainly not on the team that's drafting first, whoever that might be. And we know it's the Raiders. And so we're talking about a different ask from Mendoza, something that, we just haven't seen, Chad.
I think there's some credibility to what you are saying. But seemingly he's going to go to the Las Vegas Raiders. And while I talked about Tom Brady's involvement being complex for a future head coach, I think for a quarterback like Fernando Mendoza, could there be a better mentor? No, because Tom Brady did not come out of college as a finished product. He did not come out of college as a slam dunk quarterback, as evidenced by his draft ranking and draft status. But there's no better guy to teach a cerebral young quarterback how to master the mental part of the game and the nuance of the game. For a guy who is as hungry for that knowledge as any player I've ever been around in Fernando Mendoza, to get it from the hungriest player for that knowledge I've ever been around in Tom Brady, that seemingly would be a marriage made perfectly between those two. I hear what you're saying, And I don't think he comes into the league as a finished product. And he instantly is talked about as a top 10, much less a top 5 quarterback. But I think the franchise ability is within him mainly because of the mindset, more so than the skill set. The skill set is there. It is enough to get the job done, but it's going to be his mental capability that's going to take him to the next steps.
Well, and also, so a couple things when you look at the Raiders specifically, regardless of who the coach is, but if that coach comes in and it's VJ, it's Brian Flores, it's whomever, it's Clint Kubiak, whoever else is on their list, and they know that they're not winning the Super Bowl next year, but they can have some building blocks, similar to what we saw with Drake May and the Pats a year ago. And it's going to be like, okay, we also just took a top 10 running back last year, wherever Genty went, but, a first round back, Heisman candidate there. We're going to run the ball more. We're going to get bigger up front. We're going to make this kid's life a little easier, just like when Tom Brady came into the league. We're going to play much better defense than they've ever played, but we're going to focus on defense. And then you talk about his off the field personality stuff. We know Tom Brady has had no problem talking to girls. Certainly, whether it's Bridget Moynihan, the Hollywood actress, or Giselle, the prettiest woman in the world in some people's estimation, supermodel, and the women he's talked to since. But Tom Brady never put football on the back burner. He managed to make it all work. And then you just look at, I know this is a silly thing, but the logistics of getting ready for the draft and quarterbacks trying to hit the ground running. There are rules around how much you can formally do with a team. And Tom Brady being an owner can kind of complicate things. But where does Tom Brady live? Miami. Where's Fernando Mendoza from? Miami. Where's he going to get drafted to? Vegas. But Tom Brady may not be in Vegas that much. And so there's not going to be an extra lift for Mendoza to fly to Northern California to hang out with Tom, or New York City, or Boston, or even Tampa. It's the places he's going to be are Vegas and Miami. Same with Tom. So they can get on the same page quickly. There's a great, we're talking about Ricky Williams video. There's a great video of Tom and Jay-Z with Michael Rubin from Fanatics last year, and all the first round picks from the Bo Nix draft class, and Caleb Williams and Brock Bowers and Drake May. And they're at like a lunch with these guys, and they're picking Tom's brain. It's all videotaped, and some of it resurfaced again this week with Drake and Caleb and Bo all playing in the playoffs. But this kid will have an unlimited opportunity to do that. And I don't think you can put a value on that, because like we asked Russ, how much did you talk to Peyton? Or we asked Bo, how much you talking to Peyton Manning? That takes work to get on the same page, because Peyton's got a million things going on. If Tom is that invested when he's not with his kids, he's not going to be calling games in the offseason. Yeah, he has his business stuff. But if the Raiders are his priority and Mendoza's coming there pretty much from now, I guess, once they hire a coach, through the offseason, they could spend a lot more time together than you would normally get if Drake May wanted to talk to Tom Brady as a former Patriot, just in Tom and his normal day-to-day being Tom Brady.
And you know what I think? It makes not one damn bit of difference.
Well, Chad, you would know as much.
Well, one of the things,
thing.
One of the most overblown things to me is this sort of this knowledge and skill set and ability by proximity. I'm close to the greatest to ever play. I talk to him every day, and therefore I am going, it's like if you just pour some water on both of us, osmosis will allow all of that brilliance to leak over into me because I'm close to him, and it's going to make me who he was. Give me a break, guys. How many guys do you think Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and the greatest quarterbacks mentor and talk to every single day? The only ones we talk about are the ones who turn out to be great. I guarantee you the heap pile of mediocrity that both those guys have mentored and talked to is far greater than the good quarterbacks that we talk about that they've had close, an ability to touch. And so I'm not one who believe that either Fernando Mendoza is going to be good because he's going to be coached up. He's going to be in a situation that maximizes his skill set. And then ultimately, he just got the stuff to make it happen, like any other quarterback in this league.
One pushback on that. For Peyton Manning and for Tom Brady, clearly those teams were not drafting first-round quarterbacks to be in the same room with them because the quarterback position was solidified. So they were mentoring dudes who were not of the same caliber or skill set as Fernando Mendoza clearly is. And it's one thing to be a mentor and get on a phone call with somebody. It's quite another with the scenario that BK laid out, where it's much more of a coach. And CJ and I know the value of great coaching. We got
Absolutely.
that at Colorado. When I went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, yes, it was great to have Kevin Green and Greg Lloyd as my mentors in that linebacker room, but it was even better to have Marvin Lewis as my linebacker coach, who went on to become the longest tenured coach in the league when he retired from the Cincinnati Bengals. So those relationships are what you make of them. Yes, and a mentor is probably not the right term for Brady to Mendoza. It's probably a little bit more of a coach. And we all know the value that a great coach can have on you. And so that's where my projection about that is coming from.
Okay.
Well, and also the aspects that you don't understand, like the coaches whomever they end up hiring will handle the game plan stuff and the execution of whatever they need in their building. But the hardest thing for any kid going into the pros is to learn how to become a professional. And now, mind you, this is also a world where these kids are coming in with money. And I think his dad's a doctor anyway. But point being, he already has figured out the money part. It's, okay, what in your routine worked? And so going back to that Fanatics video, they were asking Tom questions about when this happened, when that happened. Well, now this kid's going to have unlimited access to kind of have just answers to parts of the test that you still have to learn on your own. But if you think it's going to be this and it turns out to be right, or off-season timetables, how do I train? How do I approach? There are things that I think will give him potential advantages that most number one picks, Caleb Williams didn't get it coming in. Peyton Manning didn't necessarily, although Peyton might have had it more than most because of who his dad was. But Ryan Leaf, who went number 2, didn't get it. Most guys don't get this. And so it's going to be as curated as it could possibly be by, in most people's opinion, the best quarterback to ever do it.
Interesting.
And a kid willing to do it. Like, he doesn't have the other stuff going on. Like, I got to worry about my wife and my girlfriend or whatever, my kids, this or that. All he cares about is football.
Well, look,
I don't know if he'll be good, but he at least will have the opportunity.
I understand what you guys are saying. I just think it's an overblown sort of trope that we use, particularly in football, because of the nature of the game and, quite frankly, the nature of that position. You are on an island, and either it's in you or it's not ultimately. That's why we started the show talking about, listen, there are 32 teams, and there are not 32 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League today. There's a reason that's true. And I will guarantee the majority of them, in some way, shape, or form, have had some proximity, mentorship, relationship with greatness. It just doesn't rub off. Greatness doesn't rub off just because you're close to it. It's in you, and in the most hostile situations and environments, it has to come out of you. And that's just, there's no way you can just, sort of get that schooled out of you. It's in you, but it's not something that no great quarterback can put in you. That's my only point there, Chad. Now, I think you had something else you wanted to add to this. If not, I want to get on to something that's really bugging me in the studio.
Okay, just to touch on the national championship game last night. Indiana, first time national champions. When you and I became national champions, first time national champions for the University of Colorado. Jamari Sharp with the game-sealing interception last night. I had to text Deion Figures, who had the game-sealing interception in our national championship game. And he talked about, as we were texting back and forth, how he dang near got his ribs broke because everybody jumped and piled on top of him on the field. But I just thought the parallels of now it's a different era in college football. So what Kirk Cignetti was able to do was a much more meteoric rise than what Coach McCartney was able to pull off in Boulder. But to bring the lone national championship to both those teams and for both those games to end in such a similar fashion, I just thought, wow, life is funny. 35 years later, here we are with the same formula again.
In the Orange Bowl, ironically, as it was 35 years ago.
Well, you guys played in the actual Orange Bowl, right?
Yeah, it was the different. Yeah, exactly.
But in South Florida, and then the kid Sharp is a South Florida kid. I mean, Miami Northwest High, which is one of the powerhouse programs down there. And his uncle, famously for the U, missed an interception that would have sealed the game against Ohio State.
See, this is why we love BK. When he has all of these sort of like mind-numbing data about I got to think You mentioned the
Krisztal for
point.
that one.
You know, BK's taking it to a whole nother level, man. I mean, he's talking about the uncle, the granddaddy,
But Chad,
what the grandmama cooked before the black eyed peas and ham hocks. But
well, no, I think you glossed over, Chad. He said, or you minimized. You said it's recency bias. I think that this is in line with one of the greatest sports stories ever. Indiana has been playing football in Bloomington for 125 years, just like they have at most universities. All right. Until you guys won in Boulder, and after Gary Barnett left, I don't call it a wasteland it was, but just what a desert it was.
Let's just say it was tough.
It was tough. I went to the University of Kansas, where we've been great in basketball forever. We've never been great in football, even when guys like Gale Sayers or John Riggins were there. Never come close to a national championship. We've got a new coach the last couple of years, Lance Leipold, who's won at other levels like Signetti. Thought, oh, maybe this could get us there. Well, now that they've done it, when in 125 years, they'd only played in 6 postseason games, they've now won half as many as they had ever, or they've won 3 postseason games in this run to the championship, which is more than they had won leading up in over a century and a quarter. It can't be overstated how remarkable that is. But for all of the chaos that's going on in college football, and it's hard to reel in, and I understand the frustration of coaches and administrators and even fans are like, oh, no loyalty. These kids are just going for a check. But because of that, you don't have All-Americans backing up All-Americans at Alabama anymore.
That's right.
The best player in college football was in Boulder the last couple of years. The best left tackle came to Boulder the last couple of years. You know, the kid Dylan Edwards, he was going to go to Notre Dame. He was here in Boulder, and he went to K-State. Now he's going to Lawrence. Point being, the programs have opportunities to get players that you weren't necessarily going to get. Because like I said, that kid was going to Notre Dame, but he then chose Colorado, K-State, Kansas. Most kids aren't.
He's still playing?
He's at least going to be on Kansas.
Sixth year of eligibility?
My point being is that when you have these boosters like a Mark Cuban and a big alumni base, this won't be the last Indiana story. You need the right coach.
Exactly right.
You need the right coach. You need the right program. But why can't the University of Virginia do this? Arizona State, some of these schools, Oregon is coming close, and they had before.
Texas Tech
Right
on
is
the
enough,
doorstep,
right. And I think that is exciting for college football. I don't need to see Alabama and Georgia in the championship every year, or Ohio State or Michigan. I love that Indiana was in there last night. It was cool that Miami got back. But I think I want to see Ole Miss. We saw Ole Miss. You want to see Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Auburn back in it. All these schools, Baylor, whatever.
That's Houston. BK, I think that's a good point. A lot of people bellyache about the current state of college football. I do think one of the benefits we get is everyone's kind of in the game right now, where everyone has a shot to be in the game. If you got a Mark Cuban who's an alum or a friend of the program, then you have a shot. It's as simple as that. And presumably every Power 5 school have their cadre, if you will, of Mark Cubans. The question is, are they going to invest in the program the way that we've seen some of the big money donors do as it relates to college football since this whole NIL and the world of the new college landscape has opened up? So we'll see about that. Hey, man, Chad, you're not in studio, but let's put the camera. Can we get a one on BK, please? This dude walked up in here, man. See, you notice how he moved? Yeah. With this crap on. Now, of course, the Jayhawks
in Boulder
for to play our buffs. Chad, you had something you wanted to talk about. You had mentioned at the very onset related to CU that you wanted to share with us.
Oh, that was the comparison of last night's win for Indiana to our win against Notre Dame, and the tie to Deion Figures and the game-sealing interception. That's what that was.
How about that? And think about this, Chad. Let me ask you this before we get out of here. On that note, what would the narrative have been if in '89, when we were undefeated and lost the national championship game, because by the time we ended up winning it, people they were watching. We were the hunted then. In '89, we were still hunting. The big dogs in the conference were still Oklahoma and Nebraska. What might the narrative have been had we won that 1989 national championship?
Oh my goodness. We would have been the greatest story in college football history, probably at that
I
point.
think you're
Yeah. It's funny, but just like Indiana needed last year to
right.
make this year possible, we needed
That's right.
1989, that process of going undefeated and being the darling and realizing, oh, we're not quite as tough as we think we are. We're not quite as hardened as we thought we were, like Notre Dame was, to order to withstand the gauntlet that ended up being the 1990 season, because we played the nation's toughest schedule that year, and we still found a way to come out up top. Our backup quarterback, as little and small as he was, managed to play big for us in certain critical moments of the season. So we were hardened and toughened by that 89 season. So 90 wouldn't have been possible without 89.
You know what I love, man? You know what I love about my old teammates is we are the most complimentary of one another, but compliments don't come without a price. Like there's never a straight compliment, right? Like Chad, you would have been the greatest. You were arguably the greatest linebacker to ever play at Colorado if you take Al and a couple of other guys out. Right? You know, it's that kind of compliment.
There's always
right?
a qualifier.
It's always
Right.
a qualifier. Hey, man, I want to give a shout out to our folks over at Furniture Row for setting us out. Chad, I don't know if you've been in studio since we had the new digs in here, man. Have you?
No, I will be in this week for the post-game show after the AFC Championship. So I'll have a chance to see how those chairs fit for a man of normal size versus you two.
Well, here's what I tell you. They fit quite well, quite comfy. I know BK swings his legs a little bit. Nah, that probably bothers him. But
They're
that
firmly on the
aside,
ground.
that aside, Chad, hold on. Let's get Chad back up because I want to give him a little bit of wardrobe advice. Don't wear that shirt with your skin tone on these chairs. We won't see anything but glasses.
Yeah. I need more light, need less light, need translucent.
It was about halfway through the show. I was like, this was a bad choice.
Yeah, like, when's Chad gonna put a shirt on?
Hey, right on, man. Hey, look, right on, fellas, man. I appreciate it. Again, the Big Al and CJ podcast with my main man, Chad Brown, and of course, BK, Brandon Krisztal, right here in studio. Post-game show coming up Sunday, Chad, you and Kristen.
Yes, right after the game, we will be in studio.
And I'll join him from the field.
And now, what about Football Friday? You got Football
Fridays, Chris Harris Jr. We will be previewing the Denver Broncos in the AFC Championship game. It's almost, I don't say we're taking it for granted, but it should feel like a bigger deal. And maybe the Bo injury has muted it a little bit. The Broncos are still one win away from going back to the Super Bowl in the same city where they won Super Bowl 60. And if it ends up being against Chad's Seahawks, they could exact some revenge there. That would be a tall task based on that Seahawks roster and that defense.
I'll tell you what, that's one
fun storylines.
That's one good-looking football team.
Clint Kubiak, by the way, some people may not know, his dad, Gary, was the Broncos coach when they won Super Bowl 50. And I don't know if Clint or any of his brothers were on the staff.
Who the hell doesn't know that? Everybody
I
knows
just like
that.
to let everybody know. But there's a chance one or both of them were on, Clint or Klein. Some of them were on that staff. I needed to go double check, but so that's a fun tie-in there.
No doubt about that. And hey, our next episode of Big Al and CJ podcast will have a special guest, former CU Buff, former Denver Bronco, now radio talk show host extraordinaire, Philip Lindsay. Denver's own Philip Lindsay will join us. So that does it for us. Again, Chad, appreciate you, big dog. BK, right on, man. Have a great week, everybody.